Hello and welcome to the Raspbmc impressions video. This video is meant to give you an idea of how the Raspberry Pi runs Raspbmc, which is the first, or if you want to call it, the original XBMC distribution that was available for the Raspberry Pi. This version of XBMC is also based on Frodo, so it's XBMC version 12 release Canada 2. This video will cover the startup of the Raspberry Pi and how long it takes to get into XBMC. It'll show you the movie playback. I'll cover Flash video playback using the YouTube plugin and how it looks using a different skin. At the end, I will give you some final thoughts and some comparison on how I like it compared to OpenELEC, which I reviewed a couple of weeks ago. So the first thing I want to do is cover the startup, which I'm about to plug the Raspberry Pi in right here, and you can see it light up down there underneath my TV. In comparison to OpenELEC, this thing boots a little bit quicker. It only takes about 50 seconds or so for the Raspberry Pi to start up, and as you can see, that's the Raspberry Pi logo right there on the screen. From there on, it goes to a blank screen, then the logo comes back one more time, and the next thing you know is you'll be in XBMC. I'm actually fairly surprised how quickly this thing boots with this distribution, considering that I already thought that OpenELEC was pretty quick, but apparently the guys who made Raspbmc actually got it even a little bit faster than OpenELEC, which is supposed to be like a really scaled down version of XBMC. So it actually works pretty well, at least in the boot up process. So the playback of movie files is obviously important, and I wanted to see how well this performed in comparison to OpenELEC. Now again, these files are located on my network attached storage, and it's connected via 100 meg Ethernet. So as you can see already, I don't know if you can tell right there when I'm scrolling, in OpenELEC it was actually able to change the backgrounds in the fan art in XBMC as I was going. So again, I'm going to start with Easy A here, which is kind of like the movie that I've picked for every video so far that I've done, just so that you have a comparison across the board. And it takes it actually a little bit to load, which is a little bit surprising. I think OpenELEC was a little bit faster there, but then it just goes ahead and starts. If you fast forward, which I'm about to do here, it does take a little while. You can't see it, but usually there's a little box at the top in the upper right hand corner that says buffering, and you will see that XBMC is loading in the next video. So this is just Easy A again, plays back fine. Also, this version of XBMC does not have the same problem that OpenELEC did, where if you fast forward, it gives you a white screen that's full of artifacts, and then it takes it a second to go back. So this playback actually works a little bit better. And then I'm going to launch Eden of the East again, which is an MKV that is 720p, I believe, has subtitles, so you can kind of see how the subtitles work. I didn't notice any problems with it. Again, takes a little bit to load there, and the fast forwarding is also a little bit slow, but you'll notice here in just a second that as she starts talking, you'll see the subtitles.
Listen, Missy, I don't know what you're thinking. Why'd you bring this crap into my car?
The next thing I want to cover is Flash playback using the YouTube add-on that comes with XBMC. So again, just like in the last video when I was reviewing OpenELEC, I'm going to go ahead and use the official add-on to search for a file. In this case, I'm looking at a song called Beam Me Up by Kazette instead of Gangnam Style, and I will go ahead and play it back for you. It's in 720p, which it played back pretty well, so just go ahead and take a look here. As you can tell, the searching still takes quite a while, but it does eventually pull up all the results. And then once I get all the results, I'm going to go ahead and click on the first result there, which is the official video. And I believe at this point in time it threw an error and said it couldn't find the URL, and then I hit it again and it just started playing it. So that must have just been something goofy that was going on. Usually it didn't do that. Yeah, there's the error at the bottom. It says playback failed. So I'm just going to try it again, and it's going to work this time. At this point in time during the playback, it actually looked like it was hanging, but it was actually still going. It just, the working bar down there stopped. So then once this started, the video popped up, and it looked really nice, just as it normally would on any other XBMC installation.
It was frightening at first, to be honest, but
just do that. People just dance for no reason. I've never seen that before in my life. Nobody knew where they came from. Nobody saw them coming. They just appeared over the city and hovered there.
The other important thing to me is looking at how different skins perform on these devices, because as I've said in pretty much every other video, XBMC to me is all about the eye candy and how nice it looks and how extensible it is. So again, I'm going to try using Aeon Nux in this case, which I've already downloaded. And it's very similar to how it was on the OpenL. Like, it takes it a little bit to apply the skin, and then once it actually applies it, it works pretty well. I wouldn't say it works as good as Confluence by any means, and actually I think it worked a little bit better on OpenL, which I'll just go into in just a minute. But I thought overall it worked pretty well. So and then here, after quite a few seconds, it finally ended up applying the skin. It's not abnormal that it did that. It did the same thing on OpenL, as I mentioned earlier. It's probably just because the skins are very CPU intensive, and since the Raspberry Pi doesn't have a very fast CPU, that's why it takes so long. And it renders all the videos using the GPU and GPU acceleration, so that's why it's able to play back 1080p content, but has a hard time with this regular kind of stuff. At this point in time, I hadn't actually used Aeon Nux yet on this device. I had downloaded it but hadn't applied it. So I noticed, even with OpenL, the first time you apply the skin, when you go into some of the menus, it takes it a little bit longer than normal to actually render the first menu. So this is taking a little bit longer, and then you'll see that there's a box there on the screen that says, hey, this is the first time you've used this. So you'll see it changes the fan art pretty quickly. Once you actually let go of the mouse, or the keyboard, it's not as fast as it would be on anything else. I'm going to go ahead and change the view type here so you can see how quickly that works. It still takes it a little bit, changing the view type one more time, and then just so you have an idea of how well this whole thing actually works. So how does Raspbmc stack up compared to OpenL? Well, there was a couple things that I liked about Raspbmc. It was a lot easier to install. There's a really easy GUI Windows installer. You just double click one thing and it makes you an SD card, whereas OpenL was a little bit more difficult until I found the Windows installer for that after the fact. Also with Raspbmc, you don't get the artifacting when you're fast forwarding, so if you look back at the OpenL video, you'll notice that when I fast forward, it all of a sudden decides to give me a white screen with a bunch of artifacts. It doesn't do that here. Also, the YouTube plugin seems to work a little bit faster. Also, Flash Video wasn't buffering nearly as bad as it was on the OpenL, which was nice. Although I can tell you that originally when I first looked at Raspbmc a couple months ago, it was a lot worse than it is now. They've made quite a few improvements over the original installation. So what do I not like about Raspbmc? I would say it's a lot slower in the menus, and that's mostly because it displays really high resolution fan art. So if you go back and look at the OpenL video, it's probably going to be hard to tell for you not looking at it in person, but the OpenL fan art is a much lower resolution and a little bit more pixelated than the Raspbmc one, and that makes a huge difference when it has to load much bigger pictures into memory. It also seems to be a little bit slower when you're fast forwarding or skipping stuff within the videos. At least that's how I felt. And then finally, the one weird thing that I had never run into before, I was getting a bunch of errors trying to scrape my shows from my network attached storage. It just randomly kept saying that the connection timed out. I never got that with OpenL or any of my other devices, so I'm not sure if that was a problem that I had with my network or what was going on, but I usually don't have that issue. So I would say if you're looking at making a decision which one you want to go with, at this point in time, I would probably go with OpenL. Just because it seems to run a little bit faster, and I don't use Flash Video very much. But if you like the Flash Video a lot, go ahead and give Raspbmc a try. It's not like it costs you any money, and installing it is really, really simple. So that's pretty much it for the differentiation and the impressions that I had of like this Raspbmc version of XBMC and OpenELEC, which I looked at a couple of weeks ago. If you have any questions, go ahead and post them in the comments or visit my Tumblr page. It's xbmcstuff.tumblr.com, and I'll see you for the next video. Alright, have a good one.